My name is Tina Wyeth Baker, and I, like all of the Wyeths gathered here today, am descended from Ebenezer Wyeth Jr. and Mary Winship of Cambridge, Massachusetts. On this very day, 239 years ago, Ebenezer Jr. left his home just north of Harvard University to join his fellow Minutemen in the first battle of the American Revolution. As a member of the Cambridge militia, he joined the conflict at Lincoln, Massachusetts, and engaged the British as they marched from Lexington and Concord back to Boston. From John Wyeth's service in King Philip's Indian War in 1675 to James Bright's service in Afghanistan, the Wyeths did and still do take service to our country seriously. The three oldest sons of Ebenezer Jr. also fought for American independence. My fourth great-grandfather, Ebenezer Wyeth III, and his brother, Joshua Wyeth, served for a year in Captain Newell's company of artillery in the regiment commanded by Colonel Henry Knox. Joshua was also at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Jonas Wyeth served as a Minuteman with his father at the Revolution's first battle, and later in both the Army and the Navy. Descendants from Ebenezer III, Gad, and Joshua Wyeth's families are here now to honor our patriot ancestors. Many of us have never met before. Thank you all, dear family, so much for coming here today to these glorious ceremonies. We are immensely appreciative to the Cincinnati chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution, SAR, for planning, financing, and hosting these ceremonies. I am particularly grateful to Mike Gunn and to Jim Schaefer for the magnificent jobs they did organizing the events over these past several months. The Wyeth family salutes you. I also want to thank my cousin Diana's historian husband, Gary Totten, my cousin Sue Hill, who came all the way from California, as well as my historian brother, Jeff Wyeth. The three of them have encouraged and supported me in the 3-year search for Joshua's final resting place. It was extraordinary to us that someone recognized in his lifetime for helping to shape our country would be in an unremembered grave. Joshua lived in Cincinnati when he was interviewed about his role in the 1773 Boston Tea Party. So having read that many graves from Cincinnati's old burying grounds were moved to Spring Grove, I contacted the cemetery. When Spring Grove staff advised Joshua's grave was not among those moved, I next wrote the Cincinnati Historical Society. They sent me an obituary proving Joshua did indeed live in Cincinnati and that his funeral was held the day after his death on January 23rd, 1829 at his home on Longworth between Smith and John Streets. Joshua's home was near what was commonly referred to in early Cincinnati as the old 12th Street burying grounds. Christopher Smith, reference librarian of the Genealogical and Historical Local History Department of the Public Library of Cincinnati, told me those graves are currently under Cincinnati's Washington Park. Indeed, The Cincinnati Parks website confirms that, saying, quote, "The city acquired the land and reinterred most of the remains in Spring Grove Cemetery," unquote. Chris further explained that back in 1855, when the graves were to have been moved to Spring Grove, notices were published in newspapers asking families to come forward and pay to have their loved ones moved. Since Joshua's sons then lived in western Indiana, apparently no one was left in Cincinnati to request the removal. Chris's research showed the remaining monuments were placed on their side and a few feet of dirt was put over them. Now armed with information about Joshua's final resting place, the way was clear to obtain a memorial marker from the Veterans Administration. First, however, it was necessary to find a location to accept the monument. Having no success with the National Cemetery in Dayton or the Cincinnati Parks Management, I turned again to Spring Grove Cemetery to see if they would accept a memorial marker for Joshua. Tracy Brumley, assistant to the cemetery's president, was the first person to show any enthusiasm for placing a monument on their grounds to honor Joshua. With her help, the application for a memorial stone was completed and forwarded with proper documentation to the Department of Veterans Affairs. When the VA requested additional proof that Joshua was first buried below Washington Park, Chris Smith wrote personally to the VA about his research on the state of early cemeteries in Cincinnati. Dr. Michael Gunn, chairman of the Revolutionary Sites and War Graves Committee for the Cincinnati chapter of SAR, further confirmed the research. For the VA, Mike sent the record of Revolutionary soldiers buried in Hamilton County, Ohio, compiled by United States Congressman Postmaster General Samuel F. Perry. It was a tremendous help to get approval for Joshua's VA Memorial Monument. Congressman Carey wrote in the late 19th century, quote, "The vandalism of our Christian civilization has long blotted out the old graveyards of Cincinnati, scattered the bones of the departed, and broken down the memorial stones, planted their graves by the hand of affection," unquote. Jeff Seth expanded these points to a wider audience in his superb article in last Sunday's Cincinnati Enquirer. We thank him for writing a most marvelous story. And my sister and my brother Mark have copies of the paper that Jeff brought, so see them afterwards for a copy of the paper. Thank you, Jeff. And finally, with huge thanks to Christopher Smith, Mike Gunn, Tracy Brumley, and the staff of Spring Grove Cemetery, the VA granted the request for Joshua's memorial monument. It was placed here in these beautiful gardens 185 years after the death of a man who did much to shape our country and give us the freedom that now shapes our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Very, very, very nicely put. Very well put. May I ask Reverend Fox to come forward with that?
Give us faith where we lack deeper trust. Grant us hope where we do not comprehend a sure answer. And bestow your love that your peace may abide. In Christ's name, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony today. We thank you very much for coming. We we will now have the color guard retire the colors.